So, welcome, good morning, and good afternoon for everyone.
Good morning.
We're so glad to have you here with us today. And before we dive in, we'd love to get to know you a little bit better. So, please go ahead and say hi in the chat box, write down your name, the name of your organization, and where you're joining us from. As we go along, if you have any questions regarding the topic of today's webinar, please feel free to drop them in the chat and we'll revisit them towards the end of the session. Unfortunately, our director, Kristen Stevens, will not be able to join today's session due to a personal emergency. However, in this call, you'll be able to see various members of the Kannico Agency throughout this webinar. So thank you, everyone. Before we begin, just a brief introduction. The Kannico Agency was founded in 2005 by our director, Kristen Stevens. She's passionate about helping nonprofits achieve their missions. She built a fulfilling career in the sector, strengthening nonprofits to achieve sustainability as they make a meaningful impact on the world. She was born and raised in Latin America and the Bahamas. Kristen's work has a heavy international emphasis and includes projects in Guatemala, in Costa Rica, Panama, Mexico, Colombia, Jamaica, Bahamas, and it keeps on growing. Kristen has an MBA from Florida International University, certified in nonprofit management, and certified fundraising executive, also certified by the Board Source as a board nonprofit consultant. Kristen is deeply committed to personal and professional development, and in 2021 became a certified professional coach by the World Coach Institute. Backed by a team of talented colleagues with complementary skills, Kristen and the Kannico Agency provide specialized consulting and coaching services to nonprofits, for-profits, and for foundations throughout the US and abroad, advising on alternate revenue streams, identifying opportunities for maximizing social impact, and ensuring nonprofits achieve their organizational excellence. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome to the floor my colleague, Susie Goodman.
All right. Hello, everybody. We're so happy you're here. I'm super excited to introduce our speakers for today, our guests. The topic, as you know, is rhythms that sustain rest and calling for nonprofit leaders and teams. And with us is Neal Salzman and Mike Boland from the Rest Initiative. So I'll go ahead and introduce Neal first. So Neal is the founder and executive director of the Rest Initiative. He leads the team of a team dedicated to helping leaders and organizations create sustainable rhythms of rest and resilience. He has 20 years of counseling and leadership experience and brings practical, relational approach to strengthening the emotional health of the nonprofit team and culture. He's worked with more than 50 organizations across the US and abroad and guides leaders to thrive personally and professionally. And then we have Mike Boland. He's based in Atlanta, like me. Mike serves with the Rest Initiatives, helping leaders and teams strengthen well-being and sustainability in their work with advanced training in narrative-focused trauma. From the Allender Center in Seattle, Mike helps leaders and teams engage their stories with greater self-awareness and resilience. He's known for thoughtful and relational approach and creates space for meaningful reflection and growth and guides individuals and organizations towards more balanced ways of leading and serving. And then I think we go to the next slide. Yeah, there we go. All right. So the Rest Initiative as a whole, I personally can attest to the effectiveness of the Rest Initiative as I was part of an organization that took them on. They came in and worked with our team, both one-on-one and then as a collective whole. And I can just in short say it was very transformative for everyone involved. They are a strategic wellness consultancy. They partner with mission-driven organizations to design and implement systems and structures and culture to promote emotional health and sustainable impact. Their method is proactive and holistic rather than reactionary. With clinically trained coaches and counselors, they work with organizations to anticipate stress, burnout, building structures of support, so every team can serve from a place of rest and resilience. Um, they the services they provide are customized assessments and partnership plans, and they begin with a detailed review of your organization's needs and craft a multi-year strategy to address them. And then they also have workshops, trainings, group facilitation. They're designed to foster emotional health, healthy team dynamics, and leadership clarity. They also have individual counseling and coaching. Confidential support is offered to staff and leaders so they can thrive personally and professionally. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to the REST initiative. I think Mike will go ahead and share his screen.
Thank you all for having us. It really, truly is a privilege to join you all on your monthly meetings. Make sure you gotta hear me all right, Susie.
Yes, we can.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, we can hear you. You're good.
Well, great. Well, thank you so much for having us. Like Susie said, my name's Neal Salzman. I'm also in Atlanta, and crazy. It snowed here yesterday in Atlanta, which is amazing. I see Farrell on here from South Florida. He used to be in Atlanta. It snowed yesterday, so we're excited. But thanks again for having us. Mike and I have been in Atlanta for, I don't know, quite a while, 8-10 years, and I just want to share a little bit about the REST initiative and what we do. It'll be quick, and then Mike will jump into some of our content around rest and renewal and sustaining rhythms that we hope are helpful, very practical ways, and maybe even cast a little vision of what many of you as nonprofit leaders and your organizations want for your organization. And so real quick, the REST Initiative started probably 15, 16 years ago with a desire to support and care for organizations that do really good work. In our experience, we were part of a lot of different organizations where the founders just got fatigued, they got exhausted, they got burned out. Many of our friends went to work at churches and other organizations and doing great work, and they didn't make it. They couldn't sustain the rhythms, and so out of a passion to serve them and to serve what they have put on their hearts to do, whether it's caring for people in anti-human trafficking worlds, or if it's in faith-based organizations and homeless organizations, and all other different types of organizations, we get to partner with them and help sustain them. And we do that by consulting, by counseling, by workshops, by facilitating retreats. We kind of tailor our work to support them. And really what our tagline in some ways is we partner with organizations to strengthen the well-being of their people and the health of their culture. And together, we help leaders and teams cultivate rhythms of rest, resilience, and renewal. And this is key, so they can serve from a place of wholeness, not exhaustion. And that's the key for us. What does it mean to serve out of a place of wholeness as opposed to exhaustion? I know many of you as leaders, you wear many different hats. I'm sure in nonprofit roles, trying to, whether it's organizationally, administratively, casting vision, so many different hats. How do we do that well? And that's our heart. And that's what we want to see, so that the vision and the mission of the organization thrives for a long, long time. And so our team has the privilege to do that. I think I mentioned this, 37 of us on our team, all types of mostly licensed therapists, some ministers, and as well as some coaches as well. And so great team all over the country. Wish we had a few people outside the country, but no longer. We actually had someone in Vietnam and a few countries in Africa. So we're back in the States, but we serve a number of international organizations as well. So that's who we are. We can answer more questions later, but I want to give time for Mike to kind of share some really practical ways we can serve and thrive out of a place of rest. And that's our hope and our focus. So again, thanks for having us, Mike. Why don't you go ahead and take over and lead some of this time.
And there we go. Okay, yeah. All right. Well, as Neal said, my name is Mike and Susie. It's good to be with you guys. We do work with quite a few of our nonprofits, and it's such a pleasure to work with them and do this work. And nonprofits, to me, they fit such a, they tend to find these gaps, and that's difficult because the reason the gap is there to start with, there's problems, right? And so you're from the get-go meeting needs, meeting a gap that others often aren't thinking about, and that from the get-go means it can be troubling in different ways. But I don't know if any of you watched the show. Have you ever seen the show? It's called The Prophet. And please speak up or interrupt at any point if you need to. Anyone ever seen The Prophet by a guy named Marcus Lemonis? You ever seen that? It's a show on NBC or something where he goes to companies that are struggling, and he has a framework he takes to them. But the first thing he does, I mean, the reason he goes to those companies is he loves their product. Their products are amazing, but there's something getting in the way of their growth. And so he lives with them and around them, and he begins to just help them. And eventually he says, okay, here's a check. I'm going to own 51% of your business, but I'm in control. And the show plays out. And here's his process. He says that there in every business, he wants to help people, processes, and the product. And so the product's really good. Typically, he makes a few changes. Processes sometimes can be a mess, sometimes not. But inevitably, in every episode, the greatest problem is the people. And the people and their interpersonal relationships, the conflict between the owner and the realities going on. It's always the problem. And as we do this work with nonprofits, we see something quite similar. Just being real, the product is usually incredible. What you guys do, the gaps you're filling, it's important, it's needed, and it's typically there's not many people doing what you do, so it's great. The product, the processes often need help in nonprofits, which is why things like this exist. And a lot of the nonprofits we work with tend to deal with trauma and processes in traumatic work. They have to be adaptable, flexible, because of the type of work many of those folks are doing, and so it can be tough. But the last one is people, and that's where we come in. Our hope is to provide a layer of care, and we keep saying we keep getting invited in once burnout happens, and we want to get in front of that with people, with organizations, and before you hit the wall, before you fall off the cliff, to begin to help with the interpersonal stuff that's going on in an individual story, but in the collective as well. And so again, that's why we exist. That's who we are. And the way we like to think about that is that what we see with great leaders and organizations is they live in rhythm. There are rhythms that they sustain. And if you look at our world and how our world's been made, I would think, especially if you're a believer in God, that God seems to love rhythm. Like, think about the way our earth turns every day, and the way we go around the sun every year, the way the ocean works and the moon, right? Day, night, those types of things. Also, your heart. If your heart's not in rhythm, you're not healthy, right? And are you the guy that can't keep rhythm when you dance? There's a such thing as rhythm, right? And so rhythm it's important, from dancing to how the world works, but especially to our health. And what we see with great leaders creates rhythms that sustain. And so that's one of the things we love to help organizations do. And so why it matters, guys, is our next kind of place we go is, and you know some of this stuff most likely, but burnout is huge in your sector. It's just a big part of it. And many that we meet with wear burnout as a badge of honor. But I'm going to tell you, not very long. Burnout will get you. It'll take you out. And again, you probably know that. And so in 2024, the for Effective Philanthropy report, a report found that 95% of nonprofit leaders identify burnout, either personal or among their staff, as a major concern for their mission. Major, right? And again, that's what we find with all the nonprofits we spend time with. That's a big one. And it's the one that they don't know how to sustain. They don't know how to fix. We love the mission. We love to go after the mission, but it seems that we're limping. There's something we can't change because the mission is so important. We keep going after it, but the struggle to want to do more and be more effective, it keeps them out when it's burnout that's at the problem. So burnout, it's this response to chronic unrelieved stress. So it's a state of physical, emotional, mental exhaustion caused by chronic unrelieved stress, especially in caregiving or mission-driven work. It's marked by 3 core dimensions. And this is, again, from a big psychologist in this area. She says this: 1 is emotional exhaustion. It's feeling drained, depleted, or like you have nothing left to give. Depersonalization or cynicism. This is a big one we see. It's becoming detached, numb, or resentful towards people or mission, the mission you once cared about, right? This is where we begin to dehumanize others around us. We see them as projects or roles they're not fulfilling. But ultimately, there's a reduced sense of personal accomplishment. There's a feeling of being ineffective, discouraged, or that the work doesn't matter. It's an apathy that begins to grow as burnout stays there over time. Yeah. So those 3 things, I wanted to just say too what they often look like. Chronic urgency, always urgent, right? Or the guilt-driven. This is the one I'm guilty of. The guilt-driven hustle, right? It's like I feel so bad for what's happening here, and from that guilt I go after it. And most of the time, if the problem there is fear, and guilt is not love. It's something motivating us that will not sustain us. Another one is what we often see as resentment. There's just a deep resentment, but it's masked by overfunctioning, doing everything, but mad at everyone else. Emotional detachment, cynicism, disconnection from joy or purpose, as I said already, but that's often called mission drift. Loss of eternal clarity. Why am I doing this? Why do I give my time to this? We begin to lose that. Guys, we say that this is not signs of weakness. It's signs that typically your rhythms are off, right? It's often a gift to say, hey, if you don't slow down, something can happen that you're not going to like. It's the story we hear over and over, where passions end people or send people to places where they don't like who they are anymore or how they got there, and the passion ends up falling by the wayside. So just a few places of language that we want to present before we give you this tool. Just some language that restores, right? This is some of the language we begin to use. And language is important, guys, because language builds culture, right? As your organization has a shared language, we have lots of tools we teach, for example, when we're with organizations. And those organizations will start to use language like the box, which is a tool we teach, or the waves that you'll teach today. But this is some language that we use that we think is important in keeping and sustaining rhythms. So the first term that's important to us is the word calling. Calling sometimes gets confused with vocation. Vocation is a vehicle for calling, guys. It's how you live out your passion. It's one opportunity. And some people have the privilege of having their calling in their vocation, but not a lot of people do. But calling it's the meaningful, purposeful work that you feel compelled to do, whether you're getting paid for it or not. It's that place where evil is entering the world, where you want to put your foot on its neck, that you feel so drawn to stamp it out. But it's a problem when calling is when it becomes identity. When we're trying to secure who we are and what we're called to do, then the success and failure of the activities you're involved in is what determines your life. It determines your joy, determines your presence. how you show up as a husband or wife, things like that. So that's a place where we have to really be careful, is not to let identity be consumed by or defined by what you do. Instead, calling comes from who you are. And that often gets backwards in burnout. It's a symptom of it. So it's not just a job title. It's not just a role. Calling demands output. There's a place, a gap in the world that needs my presence. So it will require a lot of us. But if we don't learn to live from it or learn what it is, again, anything can take its place. Anything can take our energy. And so the next one is the word rest. Rest isn't time off, guys. It's not just a nap. It's what is it that restores you physically, emotionally, relationally, and spiritually? What restores you? And what we've seen is there's a proactive and reactive nature to rest, right? So a lot of us, there's a lot of output required. We need to rest after that, you know, and that tends to be how Americans think about rest. Give a lot of output and rest. But our hope is to see that, no, there's a lot of proactive that can go into sustaining you, getting you ready for what you're called to, as you'll see. But rest needs to match the weight and intensity of the calling, as you'll see. So rest is not escape from work, guys. It's a return to wholeness. What is restful for you? What takes you to wholeness? The next term is input output. Output is what you give. Input is what gives back to you. Output is what you give. Input is what's giving to you, what's serving you, what's going into you that becomes fuel for output. Again, calling is output. Rest is input. Most leaders only track output. That's what they see is production, is output. And it's where we got to be very careful if we're only measuring what goes out and not also what's coming in. The next term is, you don't hear it as often, but any healthy system has differentiated parts, right? Like Chick-fil-A is a big client of ours. And we always say, as an example, the drive-through can't be healthy and the kitchen be unhealthy. To be a healthy system, right, both have to be healthy. They have to be differentiated. So differentiation is the ability to stay connected to yourself and others without being consumed by them. To stay connected to the mission without being consumed by the mission. Who you are and who they are, there's a clear line between them. I'm differentiated. This comes from family systems work, but it's especially vital in trauma work. It helps prevent emotional fusion, enmeshment with mission, and chronic reactivity. Differentiation. Are you differentiated from the things you do, the output? Last one is integration. Integration is the process of becoming a whole person where your mind, body, emotions, and relationships and story are no longer fragmented or competing. It's where your inner and your outer world align. You don't have to pretend or split off from them. Integration is the goal, guys. It's where coherence happens in us, and it fuels us for the long, and it helps us stay wise and adaptable. But again, you can have a great mission and get lost inside it. And that's why these 5 terms are important. We are not meant to live fragmented lives. And so, again, we want to give you a tool. We want to give you a tool to think about how do you think about these things in creating sustainable rest. And this is real simple stuff. You might be going, man, I gave my time to this simple thing, and I hope you don't, because I hope you'll see the profoundness of it, of what we mean by living in rhythm, right? And so this first slide here, this is a sine wave, and I'm not a physics guy, but if this wave is going to go on forever, the trough and the crest have to match in amplitude and frequency, right? They have to be just the input and output have to be in this commensurate relationship, right? And so this is the way we think about rest and calling. Next slide. Rest and calling. Now, if you have read the Bible, you'll know that Genesis is the story of God's people written to them after they come out of Israel, right? And whether you believe it or not, just let's learn from it. In Exodus, Moses writes them their story. He gives them their story. And at the beginning, when he's talking about how the world was created, he says there was evening and morning, day 2, evening and morning, day 3. What every American hears is there was morning and evening, day 2. Morning and evening, day 3. But it's not what the text says. It says there was evening and morning. See, when God's reorienting his people, instead of producing all day to get to rest, that's what slavery is. Production is what defines you. He says, no, not in my economy. The way it works here is you will rest to work. Input will be first. So you know how it is then, right, guys? Most of us start our day with Netflix and ice cream, right? That's as strategic as we think about rest on a daily level, right? But what if your day was different? What if you started with what goes in? You just had that mentality that something has to go in because something is going to come out. I need something in me to come out in my calling. I'm not trying to find and secure something in myself from my calling. No, it's the opposite. And so this is where the waves, and when we give people, we want them to see that there's the need for a quality, a depth, and an intentionality, and from their calling to the rest. And what we mean is both. Think about it for a moment. Think of the quality, the depth, the intentionality of the missions that you guys all are part of, the ones I was seeing to start to formulate in the chat. All these incredible missions. Think about the quality you give to it, the depth of what your reach and what you're trying to fulfill in life, the intentionality that you give to it. Is it commensurate to what goes in for you? So quality. You see these 3 words: regulated, integrated, present. Regulated, it helps your body shift from the sympathetic system. Every morning, your sympathetic system brings you up. But also, that's where fight or flight happens. If we're living in constant fight or flight, cortisol stays in our bodies. We're not healthy. Regulation brings the parasympathetic system in and allows your body to come down. So does your rest actually bring your nervous system down? There's your question. Does it actually bring you down, or does it just distract you, right? Integrated, connects body, mind, emotion, and meaning. It's not just zoning out, it's zoning in. Is it integrated? Good rest reintegrates the parts that stress fragments in you. That's what good rest does. It integrates the parts of us that stress fragments inside of us. Present. To be present allows you to be where you are, not multitasking, not production. And what we often see, that a lot of rest is actually hustling. It's not rest, it's just a strategy in disguise. Regulated, integrated, present, quality. Do you have a quality of rest like that? The next one is depth. Depth is, it starts with desire. Desire is such a beautiful thing. It's hurt in so many and wounded in so many of us. But again, if you're a leader of a nonprofit, most likely you're really connected with desire, which is beautiful. But you're allowed, what about desire for you? You're allowed to want good things. Deep rest honors desire instead of numbing it. What are the things that bring you back to life? What brings you back to life? What helps you and not just survive? Intimacy is connection with people who know you, who fill you up. Intimacy. And then finally, emotional. You create space to feel and metabolize. Now hear this, what your work stirs up in you. Your work, again, as you fill these gaps, it's stirring a lot in you. Again, especially if you're dealing with traumatic situations, hard situations, which most are. It stirs so much in you. Rest is where we tend to our stories. We tend to the things happening to us. That's desire. Lastly is intentionality, rhythms. They're predictable rhythms for our body, right? There's a family on my street that we serve. They have 6 children and they're impoverished, and they often will come down before a basketball game. Hey, will you wash our jerseys? Hey, we don't have any food. There's no predictability in their home. And it leads to chaos for them outside of their home, right? You know, if you're a good parent, you want to bring predictability to your children. It provides a sense of safety. Well, our nervous system's the same way. Is there a predictability? Is there, in your intentionality for yourself, is there predictability? Protected spaces that happen before you need them. Time in the morning, whether you're connecting with God or yourself. Time with a spouse. Predictability. It's not scheduled. It's, you know, if it's not scheduled, it's wishful thinking. So we need to predict. It needs to be predictable. So boundaries. Boundaries are the guardrails. Do you protect your space? Most often, we don't have containment. We don't have good boundaries, and the mission ends up infringing on them. And again, it can be guilt and a lot of other things, but we need good boundaries. Sabbath only works, guys, if it's guarded. We got to protect it. And then lastly, creativity. You don't need to copy somebody else's rest, right? What's restful for you? And that's the beauty of this work, is we get to do this with each person in individual ways. But what's your wiring? What is it that you need? Like, you know, again, working out is very restful for me in a strange way, as my body feels like output, but it does a lot of input for me. So intentional, it doesn't mean rigid, but it does mean it's chosen by you. It's for you. So quality, depth, intentionality, is there a commensurate quality, depth, intentionality of rest to the quality, depth, and intentionality of your calling? And again, your calling is bigger than just this mission. It's your spouse. It's your family. It's your heart. It's your faith. All those types of things. Now, the next slide. This is important. This is simple physics, guys. This is called a dampening wave. This is what happens. This is what happens when this is not true. And the end of this wave, the far right of it, is where we tend to meet people, unfortunately. That's where burnout is. It's when it's just so small. But what you see with the dampening wave is you often see overextended output. This large, so sometimes it can be real high on that top side, but shallow input, right? Wish I could draw that wave for you. Or high output and inconsistent input. Regardless, it fizzles out over time. Yeah. And our hope, friends, is the next wave. This is capacity. Like, how do you raise your capacity? Well, look, there's evening and morning. What needs to go in? What's the quality, depth, intentionality that needs to go in that will increase not only not only does the input increase, look what also increases. Your effectiveness, your output, what you give to the world, where you put your foot, on evil and take out these horrible things that that's so important for what we're called to. This is restoration. And what we see, friends, is it's not just a daily thing. It's daily, it's weekly, it's monthly, it's yearly. These rhythms are, they're a part of our entire year, all the way down to our day, and even down to oftentimes middle parts of our day. Like, I'll have sessions with people and I go out and I stand in our parking lot and I look like a big idiot, I know, because I stare up at the sun and I just stand there and I take in that vitamin D and I breathe with my eyes closed. That is an important part of my day. I got to get that off of me at times, right? Yeah. And it's a rhythm for me. It's something I do every single day, right in the middle of my day, and it's scheduled. But yeah, that's the rhythms that are important. And they must be designed to support you, not just your calendar, right? And we know they can be proactive, but they also can be reactive in the sense of, a heavy season's coming up. You plan for what's coming after it, right? Things like that. Now, the last thing I want to talk about, before I invite your questions, there's a great line by a man named C.S. Lewis. He says, "It's not the load that breaks you down, it's the way you carry it." The old ball coach, Lou Holtz, used to say it like this. He says, "It's not the load that kills you, it's how you carry it." So it's not the load, actually. And so sometimes we meet people, friends, that they have great rhythms. They're working out, there's space for a spouse, they have friendships, and they're still very depressed. They're still anxious. And what we often see in that person is their story is untold. It's not been pursued. They don't know the way they carry the load. They don't know what they bring to their leadership, what they're bringing to their organization, right? It's undiscovered in some sense, right? How they dealt with pressure as a kid, what they learned from mom and dad's faces about themselves. All of that is untold, undiscovered. And so for many of us, we can have incredible rhythms. Again, you can be working out and healthy and all the metrics are there, but there's a sense of hopelessness that you can't shake. There's a sense of anxiety, a place your heart stays that you just can't, doesn't seem to be enough rest to take it out. Most of the time, that's your story. That's your story showing up. And it's often a gift if we'll stop and look at it. It's a gift. And you can stop sharing the screen there. We're going to go to questions now in a second, but I just want to be able to see your faces as we talk about this part. But yeah, just this is why we love what we do, friends, is because every one of you have a different story. And it's for us, it's not just about the process and the product, right? And what you're giving away, the mission. It's like, what does your heart hold? And it doesn't matter what your age is. I have clients, in their late 70s that their marriage is transformed in ways that is unbelievable because, again, their story is finally being cared for. But listen, our bodies will tend to create a crisis. They'll create a crisis so that we'll finally break open our stories. It's crazy. That's a guy named Bill Plotkin who came up with that line. He says, you will create a crisis to finally get to that place of healing that's needed. Right? And so again, that's your story. How's it living in you? And that's a lot of what we do with people is we do want to give them good rhythms. We do want to help them, but if their story remains undiscovered, right, those rhythms can often be there and still they find health is just right out of their reach. Right. And so I want to put that in before we go to questions because a lot of you might have these rhythms already in place and wonder, well, maybe this is, it just doesn't work for me. Or maybe there's a gift here. It's like pain, right? If my elbow has pain in it, I mean, imagine if you didn't have pain and there's something wrong inside, right? That pain is a gift to say, wait, stop, look at your elbow. It's such a gift to us. And again, these symptoms are often parts that send us into our story for that greater, that deeper healing. And the rest initiative, that's what we do with folks. We walk with them organizationally. Everyone in the organization gets their own counselor. They get a shared language. They do their own work. And then we do work with the team. We do seminars and trainings and things to help the team have that shared language and grow together as well. And we love what we do. And we love the organizational impact that we get to make that then you make. So, which is wonderful. So I want to stop there for your questions, concerns, what's not clear, what could be more helpful, things like that.
Yeah, if
Make a quick
anybody,
comment. Sorry, Susie.
oh, it's okay. Go ahead, Neal.
Just a quick comment. I mean, I appreciate. Thanks, Mike. One of the things just to throw out there as a thought of what when we work with organizations, there's a lot of attention to the output, like Mike said, and as we start to think about input, the hard part about input is it's not really efficient. And I'm sure a lot of you all, I'd imagine, key leaders in your organizations, if not founders here, like you want to be efficient, you want to be effective and impactful, and you want to be efficient. And what I found is in this work of care, again, I think when Mike said about it's a desire to see organizations flourish, to see them thrive, to see the impact to be way more than we could ever dream. If we get to be a part of that, that's a blessing. But more importantly, that you get to see that in your organization. And a lot of times to slow down and ask the questions, and the word that we use a lot is curious, be curious about how things are going and what you need and how you're experiencing the work. As we enter into that curiosity, we find that it's not very efficient to slow down. And so what we're inviting, even in this conversation, if we never see you all again, is can we ask and be curious, how are you? What are you needing? How are you doing running the organization? Do you have the rhythms to last another 5, 10, 20, 50 years, long after you're gone, will your organization still thrive? The posture of curiosity is a powerful thing, and the invitation is, can we be curious of how are you doing and what do you need? And that's the question around how do you carry the load? How, not the load you're carrying, I mean, that's what's important, but how do you carry it? That's the invitation. And so we're grateful to be a part of this, but we'd love to have a conversation, or if there are any questions. I think Susie, you were going to mention if there are any questions, but again, thanks for having us.
Yeah, I was just going to say the floor is open if anyone has a question they would like to unmute and ask. Oh, let's see. We have Nori, your hand is raised.
Yeah, how can someone align their best practices with the intensity or demands of their calling or work? I'm curious to know more about that.
Can you repeat that, Nori? I'm sorry.
I guess my question was, how can someone align their rest practices with the intensity or demands of their calling or work?
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. The one, the intensity of our work, I have to look at, when I look at an organization, is there space? Is this a, if you're a leader of that organization, especially, is there space? Wait, is she gone?
Oh, I'm here.
Okay, sorry. For some reason I just don't see you. I apologize. Yeah, is there space in that organization to allow these types of rhythms? But for me, I'll answer the question how I can. One, I need to know what is the intensity of my work and what does it do to me,
Mhm.
right? What's the impact of that on me? And then I have to look at my life in an honest way. And I actually have a document I use every month that where I look up, I look in, I look back, and I look forward. It's one of our tools that we teach. And it has this framework within it to help us stop and, again, look up for me is important. I want to worship, I want to have faith, I want to really just care for my heart, but then I want to look in. Where is my heart right now? Where, based on this last month, where am I? And then I look back and go, all right, what do I want to take with me? What do I want to let go of? Things like that. And then going forward, what will my rhythms need to be? What's next based on the reality of those three things, those three movements? And so that's to me, it's this intentional time of stopping. And then my wife and I do this every Sunday. We look back and then we look forward along with our budget. And it's a time where we do that for our family. And again, if we're not doing that, we're usually having conflict. That Sunday meeting is really important. Yeah. And again, looking back and looking forward, but it won't happen if you're not intentional with it. That's a reality that I've found for me and for the organizations we serve. But it's an intentional slowing down and really evaluating what is that intensity, therefore, what does that need? And Nori, I hope that's helpful.
That is helpful. That's beautiful. Thank you so much for answering my question.
Sure.
Oh, Douglas Gonzalez.
Yes. Hey, Mike. I really, utilize everything that you've mentioned this webinar, right? And I wanted to ask you, how do I prioritize my own rest when my leaders aren't modeling it or demanding so much from me?
Wow, that's a tough question. And this is where differentiation is so important, Douglas, because conversations can be difficult if my identity is not in their approval of me. I know my job, often I keep my job based on their approval, so that's important. I know that there's a ditch on both sides we can fall in there, but differentiation means that I have to have a commitment to love myself and care for me. Love your neighbor as you love yourself, right? Like, I'm not going to love my neighbor well if I'm not loving myself. And so to me, this is, when we speak at seminars, like there's this big conference we speak at, again, with Chick-fil-A, and I always ask the people in the back who are the leaders when I'm teaching the waves, I say, hey guys, look, I just want your, I know you're working back there. Just 1 second. You know, I ask them to look at me. I was like, look, and I show the dampening wave. And I was like, look, if they go downhill, look what also suffers. And so that's the conversation with the organization is guys, I don't feel like I can be healthy with what's asked of me. Right. But as I say that, Douglas, what comes up for you? You know, because that could
Oh,
bring out
so
a lot of your story. Go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah, definitely. So me personally, I come from a background that I came from living in Las Vegas to a little bit more laid back zone. And and in the environments that I've always worked on, it's very different than maybe I feel that it's a major change for me, right? It can bring all those workloads onto myself, and it's kind of like what you were saying, understanding when to put the input and output into the lifestyle that you're carrying on, and understanding exactly where that rest is really needed. Because something that you really did mention and made an impact to me is understanding how are you really resting and how are you recharging, yourself to keep going. And that's where that question came from, that
Mm.
just understanding how we can align to it.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah, good thoughts, Douglas. I appreciate those thoughts. And you know, God forbid, I don't want you to leave your organization, but what if the impact you could make is bigger than, you know, if we can create greater input, we can create greater output, right? And that's the conversations that have to be there. But again, we run into people who, when, like with me, when I first started working for a church, my dad, you know, there was a tough relationship with him. He was a dictator kind of style. He was military. I was adopted by him, and I had a hard time with authority. And so someone tells me what to do, you just do it, no matter how unhealthy it was. And I had to learn how to have those conversations. But what came up when I thought about it, that's where my story was. Remember, that's how I'm carrying the load now, is how I deal with authority, how I deal with having hard conversations, conflict. That's the kind of stuff that we got to get in to get healthy within our organizations. Yeah.
Thank you, I
Thank you,
appreciate it.
Douglas.
Yeah.
May may I share?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
So such an interesting, relevant conversation. I've been a CEO of a nonprofit organization for about 18 years now, that's based in the Bahamas. And recently we established similar but slightly different nonprofit in the US called PlanetWorks, which is what I'm representing today. And this has been, this is my third attempt at a US based 501c3. Um, and I've been through the ringer, up, down, round town, depression, anxiety, meds, like you said something that really, both the input and output was like resonated with me, but also like the chronic like urgency. I have to say I'm not so much in that energy now, but there was a time where everything, and also I'm in like the climate crisis intersection space, right? So everything is an urgent, especially when you're in the UN spaces. It's just like crisis, which isn't real, but that's the energy and frequency that they operate on, so everyone operates on. And then it's just like unsustainable and it's not real. And then the impact is just not even. So it's been a really interesting time for me as we've been expanding into sort of new ways of being, new ways of showing up. And then also just like I just mentioned it the other day, because when you level up and you're operating in higher spaces, sometimes the input needs to be intentionally leveled up, but you can like not do that. And I've spent a lot of time in a lot of these like policy spaces, whether it's the African Union or the UN. And so when you're intersecting with both governments and government timelines, which operate very differently from community timelines and nonprofit timelines and realities. So it's just these are things that came up for me when I was listening to you speak, and it's definitely something I have been working on, and I would say that I'm better, but there's a lot more room for improvement because it's counterintuitive, right? Because my brain is like the to-do list, but then my body's like, but let's go for a swim, or like there's this internal resistance of doing things because I think Neil said it. It's not convenient and it takes a lot of time. And I think one is that stepping out of the time lock is, I think, very important because I worked with a coach for some time, and I think one of the greatest takeaways that I had from my time with her was she called it sacred space, sacred time, sacred space in the morning. But essentially, it was like you don't start your day until you're feeling energetically in alignment because you can sit in front of the computer and take 10 hours to do something because you're in resistance, or you can start working on it when you're in that vibration and it can be done in 30 minutes, but having that trust in yourself that I can invest in me and then do the work is very counterintuitive to the productive sort of slave driver realities that I think most of us are used to. And so I think it takes a special level of leadership and also just grounding in self and your abilities to know that if I invest in me, if I take this time, not to feel guilty about it because then you're not resting. And I'm very guilty of feeling guilty when I am taking time off. And then you don't rest, as you said, you're just in chronic stress, and then the to-do list just pokes out. And then for me, it's just the random cuss word that comes out when I'm remembering this, that, and the next thing.
Yeah.
So it's I just appreciate this conversation. I think it is probably one of the most important aspects of being a leader and being able to like invest in yourself like without any emotions or concerns or like, oh, I shouldn't. And I think
Yeah.
especially when you're in the nonprofit sector and money is tight, and especially if you're the leader of said nonprofit, 9 out of 10 times it's your money that's being invested in like getting the organization through because there's always gaps between funding and that is a whole other toll of like how we output from ourselves but don't input. And it takes a toll. So these are just what
That's good.
I'm mirroring back from the conversation.
And can I reply real quick? That's so insightful. And Nori said this. The tricky part is output is most of us 5-6 days a week. And maybe you have one day, maybe half a day. Some people here work 7 days a week. So your output is all, how many hours is that? I mean, hundreds of hours. And your input, you have such little time for input. And so this is the beauty of this conversation, which if we had more time would be to be real creative with a limited amount of time that we have in our week. How are we going to maximize our input? And that's where the quality, depth, and intentionality becomes, I think, more heightened for us. Is like, if I have 8 hours a week to maybe do some input, how am I going to maximize that input? So whatever I do in that input, we call rest, has to maximize that time, the desires, the depth, like what's going to bring me life in. If you have kids, maybe you have 3 hours. I mean, maybe 2 hours a week. How are we going to maximize that? And that's the invitation and the permission to be creative, to be curious. What can we do? Because everything output is going to demand so much of our time. And that's the beauty of the conversation. If we had another hour, I'd love for us all to say, what do you do? What can you do? What does it look like? And to throw it all on the table so we can explore it from each other's ideas. What brings you life as a nonprofit leader? I mean, you have to be passionate. You have to be excited about something because you're in this work. So what's going to bring us as this unique group of people on this room, on this call is going to bring us life. That's the beautiful conversation that we want to invite each of us into, individually or collectively. But that's a great point. And Nori, kind of the same thing. We're a limited amount of time. What are we going to do?
Yeah. And
I know we're
I'm
coming
gonna
time
a-
here, 12 o'clock.
Yeah,
is it, are we done at 12?
we are. If
Okay.
did you have a few things you
I
wanted
just
to
made
say?
one comment. I just want you to be suspicious of the place where you say, I can't, we can't, we couldn't do any place that starts with that. Be suspicious of it. Like my wife has this thought that she says she can't rest unless the house is clean. And I finally asked her after she just is so busy, like, do you feel better when she's done? And she doesn't. Right. But what she's doing, the cleaning is her trying to deal with the negative hard emotions she's feeling. It's how she's always coped. And so as we take that coping strategy away, now we have to do the work of why those feelings are coming up anyway. And so a lot of us, we on purpose work because we're trying not to deal with something. And so all the franticness, could we be suspicious of it? That it's very purposeful. Your body is brilliant with how it wants to survive. But we got to disrupt those strategies to have that true healing. I'll end with that.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah.
Yeah, and thank you both, Neal and Mike, for such an amazing dialogue today. I think the chat is full of people. Thank you also. I'll have to send a transcript of that to you. Meg, do you mind sharing that screen? Thank you. So if anybody would like to, oop. There we go. If anybody would like to connect with the Rest Initiative, or if you have any further questions for them or are interested in what they provide, their email and website is listed here. And we'll also send a recap email with that information provided. Next slide. And then lastly, the next webinar we have is next month. It is going to be, the topic is going to be nonprofit cyber and AI safety, which is another extremely relevant topic in this time where AI is just rapidly increasing in its prevalence, especially as we use it in the nonprofit world. We'll have guest speaker Todd Rowley. He's the director of business development and nonprofit business at Old Dominion Bank, and that'll be on December 9th at 11. But yeah, thank you all for joining us, and thank you again, Mike and Neal.
Yeah. Yeah, you as well. Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much. Privileged to be with you all, and the work you guys do is amazing. Thank you.